Remember, the Zionists made deals with Nazis. The Zionists actually said Hitler was a good thing because they made a deal, various agreements, to start to move Jews because they wanted to take Palestine. At the time that Palestine was mostly Arab, right? So they knew they were a small population. They had to bring more Jews in from Europe. And so I hate to say it, but the Holocaust, they used that Holocaust to basically say we can now create a state. And that was obviously the energy that was given by Russia and America and all the UN countries to say Israel can have a state.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're reacting to another podcast. This time we're looking at PBD's podcast where Oliver Stone and his son discuss Netanyahu's motives in the Middle East. I find it very valuable, and right off the bat, the Havara agreement was something I was not aware of. This agreement signed by the Zionists and Nazi government was essentially the go-ahead for the migration of approximately 60,000 German Jews.
People don't look at it that way because they think of it as Jewish versus Muslim, and I think it's much deeper because, as you know, the Jews and Muslims have gotten along. The Jews used to go to the Muslim countries when they were persecuted by the Catholics. When they were persecuted in Spain, the Jews and Muslims both were persecuted in Spain and kicked out, right, by Ferdinand and Isabel in 1495, right, 1492, when Columbus was sailing. They kicked the Jews and the Muslims out of Spain at that time. They kicked them out of, as you know, across Europe. Many times they purged them. They would go to Muslim countries, Jews would. And they all lived together side by side in Palestine and obviously in Turkey and other countries. So it wasn't a Jewish-Muslim thing. I think this is a West versus East thing, very much.
I don't know if I disagree with that.
That's a very important point to note, and I think a lot of the world population has forgotten that history has proven that Muslims, Christians and Jews have coexisted together and thrived for hundreds of years across multiple eras and across multiple locations too. Why is it now all of a sudden portrayed that we hate each other? Great points raised and food for thought.
Israel is blown up the Middle East, blown it up. It's just like they're remaking the Middle East. They're taking that's what they said they do. Netanyahu vowed to do this, and he's done it. So many of these countries are out of commission now.
That's absolutely right. Netanyahu even said 9/11 was an attack that benefited Israel. He profited when Gaddafi was taken down and was directly involved with the demise of Saddam Hussein. Now we've seen Palestine, Lebanon, Israel, and potentially Iran.
We're in his pocket. We have no apparent say in what he's going to do.
Netanyahu.
Yes, and AIPAC and all the Israeli mechanism that operates in the United States. Our vote, our Congress means nothing. Netanyahu comes and addresses them 3 times. They stand up like dogs, clapping for everything he says, like dogs. It was disgusting. The most disgusting moment.
There's a good point that, you know, these wars in the Middle East, as Wesley Clark pointed out, it's basically the neocon agenda, and a lot of these neocons are dual Israeli citizens, right? And so it's like, who has benefited? We were with Shimon Peres when he said, the Iraq war benefits us. You know, he said that I remember very clearly. He's like, this secures our border against Saddam, right, on the Iraq side. The wars are all, you know, it's as Jeffrey Sachs pointed out, this is all Israel's policy with the Middle East. It's almost like we've basically said, okay, whatever Israel wants in the Middle East, we'll do, up and including the Syria thing, which I'm curious your position. But
it shocks me how this man gets a standing ovation. I don't understand what they think he has accomplished. Not even the US president gets a welcome like this. If you're in the UK, then in fact it's the opposite. He's booed on and booed off.
In the series, we get into this, how much, as we know, we supported creating these Al-Qaeda in Iraq and ISIS groups, right? Jihadists, which we did in Afghanistan, by the way, in the 80s. And we've done it in Libya against Gaddafi, which was insane, right? And we did the same thing now with Syria, where again, you know, another terrorist group is now in charge. I mean, it's pretty wild to understand that we've been fomenting these jihads against, going back to the days of Nasser, by the way. Actually, there's a long history. I think Devil's Crusade is a good book on the topic about CIA sponsorship of Muslim Brotherhood types and others against any nationalist, any Arab nationalist, and who does that ultimately benefit? Unfortunately, is Israel, because Israel hated Nasser, right? An Arab nationalist. It's not from the American perspective.
Why do you think they're able to do that? Why do you think they're able to do that? Because the part about the dual citizenship, when you ask somebody who is pro-Israel Zionist, they'll say the reason why we have the dual citizenship is because when Israel became a country, they want a lot of Americans to go back, but they didn't want to give up their U.S. citizenship, so they made it where you could have dual citizenship. So that's the argument for that, they'll say, right?
We have dual citizenship with France. I mean, I don't think there's an issue with dual citizenship. The problem is that the loyalty that we find tends to be a Zionist approach. And Israel itself is not, to me, it's like I don't say there's anything issue with Israel's existence, but the Zionist position is oftentimes greater Israel.
But great point. Dual citizenship is not the problem. There's got to be more to it. I think the next point explains it very well.
If they have this much power, what leverage do they have to be able to constantly negotiate more favorably for themselves over the American people?
I think
the question I'm asking.
you have to think about it as it's like a club in a way, right? And the amount of financial influence, think about the banking side of things. Think about the infrastructure of banking. A lot of this does connect to Judaism, and it's not to say that that they're bad people, but essentially, yes, there is a deep, deep, deep love and loyalty to Israel. It's interesting because we could be Israeli citizens based on our ancestry. Our ancestry of bluestone is not Zionist. Our ancestry is much more cosmopolitan. And this kind of goes to the heart of a lot of the issues, I think, at the beginning of Zionism, where the cosmopolitan Jews who said, we want to assimilate into the cultures, right, of Germany, of Europe, of America, and those who said, we want a nation, a land. And I think that there is a psychological...
You need to go to Specsavers if you can't see that with your very eyes. This is meant to be the United States federal government, the current government, and all I can see is Israeli flags. There was a similar list released on a previous podcast, and it looks very similar for the current UK government too. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.